because there is a scenario that exists that when we get to the full movement, that fault will go away, okay? So what I don't want to do is break this out, so do early arm bend again, and go. I would probably just give a verbal here instead of breaking out and be like, all right, Zoe, I want you to straighten your arms, try to extend the tricep and keep the bar in close to the body. That's probably a little bit too much time depending on how many people you have in the class. So really address it, give a quick tactile or verbal cue, and then move on. Good. Ah! All right, guys, welcome back to Jerk Bike Talk. I'm Jason Fernandez. We are here at Crossfit Rife, and I'm here with Zoe Young, one of our coaches. Today, I want to elaborate a little bit more on one of our previous videos about using progressions, and I want to give you a couple tips to either evaluate yourself or evaluate your coaching staff when they start using the progressions. And normally what happens when you start kind of enforcing that you need to use progressions when teaching a classes, people belabor the progressions. So when teaching the progressions, we don't want to spend the bulk of our time on the progressions. The progressions are just how we get to the full movement. So we want to spend the bulk of our time on the full movement, not on the progressions. And usually when people start teaching the progressions, they do it in the reverse order. So what I'm gonna have Zoe do is Zoe's gonna do the sumo deadlift high pull, and I'm gonna walk him through the sumo deadlift high pull progressions. I'm gonna skip all of the demonstration for this and all that. Zoe knows the movement. We're just gonna go through the progressions. So the first one, it's just gonna be the sumo deadlift. So he's gonna be in his sumo deadlift, and I'm just gonna call some reps here, guys. And really what I'm doing, go ahead and get in your setup mid-shin. Good, ready, and deadlift. And back down, and deadlift, and back down, and one more, and deadlift. So the next one is going to be a deadlift shrug, and then deadlift shrug fast. And really what I'm doing, I'm trying to get through these, not necessarily super fast, but what I'm doing is I'm taking notes in my mind for faults that we're probably going to see when we get to the full movement. So a good rule of thumb is 3 to 5 reps for the progressions. So when we go to the next one, which is a sumo deadlift and then a shrug, at the top, and go. Good, back down and reset, and go. Good, so right now, let's say I assume that Zoe's gonna have like a little bit of an early arm bend when we speed this up. Go back down, so we're gonna go to the third piece here, just faster. Ready, and go. Good, right, so do an early arm bend on this one. Ready, and go. Good, so I might start seeing some of these things, or I might know which faults are gonna come up. You don't wanna not address something like straight arms. I do want to talk about that, but I'm not going to belabor this and break this out and do kind of a one-on-one session with Zoe on that fault. I'm going to address it real quick, make a mental note as I make my way through the class. So for instance, if I had 5 or 6 people in the class, as I'm going through calling reps, I'm going to say straight arm Zoe, and then I'm going to move to the next person. And really what I'm trying to do is I want to get to the full movement, because there is a scenario that exists that when we get to the full movement, that fault will go away, okay? So what I don't want to do is break this out, so do early arm bend again, and go. I would probably just give a verbal here instead of breaking out and be like, all right, Zoe, I want you to straighten your arms, try to extend the tricep and keep the bar in close to the body. That's probably a little bit too much time depending on how many people you have in the class. So really address it, give a quick tactile or verbal cue, and then move on. So again, 3 to 5 reps per piece of progression, depending on what movement we're talking about. If it's the sumo deadlift high pull, there's 3 pieces of the progression. If you're going to do 5 reps, that's 15 reps there, just on the progressions. Because what happens is we'll have somebody, especially when you get to things like the sumo or the med ball clean, where there's 5 pieces to that. If I'm doing 3 to 5 reps per progression on that, what's gonna happen is I'm 20 reps deep by the time I get to the full movement. And then most people, and this is my experience from teaching level 1s and working with our coaches here, are gonna spend about half of that on the full movement, and that needs to be reversed. remember, the progressions are just a means of getting to the full movement. So when you're evaluating yourself or you're evaluating your coaches, don't spend too much time on the progressions. Remember, it's just the means of getting there. You should be spending the predominant amount of time on the actual full movement. The progression is going to tell you the faults that you're going to see when you get to the full movement, so save the vast majority of your cueing for the full movement, not the progressions. And I know that happens to a lot of our new coaches when they come in. They start learning the progressions, they start calling all the reps, and then they spend 5 minutes on the progressions, and at that point we've not even gotten to the full movement. And I would tell you that's just way too long, and this is where a lot of newer coaches, and even more experienced coaches, I've done this in the past, where you just eat up a ton of your timeline on the progression. What's that?
I do it all the time.
Yeah, all the time, where you just eat up a ton of your timeline on the progressions, and then you're like, oh yeah, we should probably do the full movement, and then you do 3 reps, and you're like, good job everybody, let's get out of here, right? It's just not enough time or not enough reps on the full movement, because the full movement is actually the most important piece. So spend the bulk of your time there, not on the progressions. If you guys like this stuff, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Zoe.
Yeah.
You're the best. Bye, Felicia.